and gentlemen, presenting the 235-member Michigan Marching Band. Band, take the field. Under the direction of Professor Jamie L. Nix, the M Fanfare.
Give me 1 second here. Still getting used to StreamYard. Still getting used to StreamYard here. If I can get myself in the entire camera. Boom. I'm wearing my Michigan alumni shirt today because I am a Michigan alumni, but I'm still getting used to StreamYard. You know, I normally start off with that avatar, and then I go to the live cam. Because I was, I forgot where I heard it, but for sports content, I think the viewers like to actually see the content creator. I have been doing some voiceover stuff, or should I say I've been working in some voiceover stuff in the last couple of months because it's easier and it's more agile in terms of editing and creating content. But I hear sports fans like to actually see you. So let me give my opening spiel. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76 Sports. First of all, please like this stream. Please share it. And if you haven't, please subscribe. This is a live stream, and it is the lunchtime hour on Friday, October 30th. I don't know how many viewers will come in to watch this one. I see there's one here. I don't know who that is, but thank you for being here. The cool thing about using StreamYard and this live format is that it creates a playback. So anyone who misses the live stream can actually go back and watch the playback. So if you're watching this on the playback, please like the video, please share it, and please subscribe. Well, today is October 30th, 2020. It is a late October Friday on my lunch break. And there's a lot going on right now in the world, as I'll describe, at least as it relates to Michigan football. And we have a big game tomorrow. And it's a nice, cool day here down in the DMV. For my new subscribers, and I appreciate everyone who subscribed since the last two live streams. My last upload was a video on the NBA. Occasionally you will see NBA content here, though the NBA content doesn't quite pop the way the Michigan football and the Big Ten content pops. But John Ubigan talked about that in his books. So if you're new to the channel and you're kind of in the NBA crowd, that was a video about how they decided to, Adam Silver and probably the league owners decided to remove the Black Lives Matter messaging from their jerseys and from their courts after the low viewership during the NBA Finals. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about tomorrow's game. So before I jump into my pregame analysis, my walk down memory lane, and my thoughts on tomorrow's game, I want to encourage all the viewers, all the Michigan fans in particular, keep your fingers crossed. And the reason I say that is because of this. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. I'm going to share this here. Keep your fingers crossed because of this. Apparently, they've had some COVID-19 issues up in Madison, Wisconsin. And the Whiskies matchup with Nebraska has been called off and considered. It's been deemed a no contest, quote unquote, by the Big Ten. So they're not going to replace that game, but the game has been canceled. And so when they restarted, or when they agreed to this format, the Big Ten higher-ups, Kevin Warren and the presidents and whomever else was making those decisions, they did not build in enough time to replace the games like the NFL has, and probably like the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 have. So once a game is gone, it's gone. So keep your fingers crossed that this type of thing doesn't happen to our maize and blue. And apparently, one of my buddies told me that Desmond Howard, who I believe helps Fox's coverage of the Big Ten, he apparently tested positive for COVID-19, for the virus. So just keep your fingers crossed that this doesn't happen with our team, the way our team has gotten off to a nice roll against Minnesota. And according to Steve Dace, the Big Ten is much more stringent about COVID-19 and testing positive for the virus in terms of the players sitting out. Apparently, our conference is more stringent and conservative in comparison to the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12. So If too many players, and particularly if someone like Joe Milton tests positive for this, then the whole schedule, boom, gets blown over and knocked over. And can you imagine if something like that happens late in the season, around game 6 or 7? That would mean that we would not get to play Ohio State, and the same is true for Ohio State. So just keep your fingers crossed that something like this doesn't happen to our squad. So tomorrow's opponent, let's jump in. I'm going to stay on for about an hour, or at least until I get through these talking points, depending upon if anyone comes through into the chat. If enough people come through and someone wants to come into the chat like we got last week, I'll stay on a little bit longer, but I'm shooting for a ballpark an hour and an hour and a half at the latest for this one. So tomorrow's opponent is Michigan State, also known as Little Brother. Shout out to Michael Hart, Cow Yu, Moo Yu, and I believe Michigan State was originally called Michigan Agricultural and Mechanical. So they were originally called Michigan A&M because it's a farming school, an agricultural school, much like I believe Texas A&M and those types of schools. So Michigan State is coming in tomorrow. They're coming back to the Big House, and so the way the Big Ten schedule works, there are some years with our rivals where you'll get a back-to-back home game. So we hosted Michigan State last season, and so if we were alternating in the truest sense, then our team would be going back up to Spartan Stadium this year. But this year, we have the game at the Big House in back-to-back years. So it's a rebuilding year for them. They've got a new coach in there, Mel Tucker. I shot a video on that back in the spring. So they had to, I think the Mark D'Antonio regime hit its peak. And like a lot of coaching regimes do, college coaches hit their peak unless you're Nick Saban or Dabo Swinney. A lot of college coaches hit their peak, and then the program tends to, in some instances, tread downwards. And then today, you rarely see coaches hang around for, excuse me, you rarely see coaches hang around for 30 years like Joe Paterno did or like Bo Schembechler did. So they have a new coach, and they're kind of in what looks like to be a rebuilding year. Last week, they lost. Michigan State lost to Rutgers 38-27, which was a bit of a surprise, but based upon them having a new coach and it being a rebuilding year for them, it's not much of a surprise. But they're coming in to the Big House 0-1. And as you know, we defeated Minnesota 49-24 last week in impressive form. So we're coming in 1-0 on a little bit of momentum, and they're coming in 0-1 off of a bit of an embarrassing loss, because I think that was Rutgers' first win in the Big Ten or against a major opponent since 2017. So that win was a big deal for Rutgers. Now, before I get into tomorrow's game, I want to take a short trip. Bear with me for a second here. And I've got my Jim Harbaugh bobblehead here. Abdul Gaines is in. I got my Jim Harbaugh bobblehead. This is going to be worth some money, I think, one day. And do you know what it says on the back? Who's got it better than us? Anyway, so what's up, Abdul Gaines? Thanks for coming through. Appreciate it. Abdul Gaines is my unofficial show producer, in my opinion. A couple of years ago, during the Revenge Tour season, I actually went to the Michigan State game up at Spartan Stadium. I think I went to 2 games that year. I went to the Maryland game down at the Big House because I missed homecoming. And then I actually went back to, I flew into Detroit Metro Airport again a couple of weeks later to see the Revenge Tour Michigan State matchup. And I remember prior to taking that trip, I think it was the president or the vice president of our Michigan alumni DC club, Eric. Shout out to Eric Rusolowski. I don't think he'll mind me mentioning his name, but I told Eric, and I think it was at the John U. Bacon signing for overtime. But Eric said, that's a fun time. It's a fun time going up to Spartan Stadium, but he said their facilities are a little bit, he said, you won't be very impressed with their facilities. And so I flew into Metro Airport, got a hotel right there at Metro Airport, and then I made the drive, and I left later than I wanted to, but I made the drive from Romulus, Michigan, all the way up to East Lansing. Might have been my second time up to East Lansing, but it was my first time to Spartan Stadium. And I got there, I parked, and I walked across campus to Spartan Stadium, and I got there later than I wanted to. And there was a long line, and the game had already started, and the whole drama between Devin Bush and their phalanx, because Michigan State walked in a phalanx across the field, and Devin Bush broke it up. But I missed that whole thing, and I missed the first part of the first quarter. But just like Eric said, Spartan Stadium, it was nowhere near as impressive as our Big House. Spartan Stadium is older. It's a little more antiquated. You have like a lower rim going around, and then you have those 2 diagonal visitor sections. Well, one of them is a visitor section, which are kind of high up, but it's not a modern facility, and it's kind of older and antiquated. And this day, there was inclement weather. There was bad weather. A real bad storm that came through, and that game actually, the play actually had to be suspended, and a good number of the fans were actually asked to leave the stadium. Now, me and a bunch of other fans sitting up at the top, we didn't do that. We hung out in the hallways and waited for the storm system to pass, and the lightning and those kinds of things. And then once play started, we went back to our seats. I took pictures on my phone, but I lost that phone, so I lost those pictures. But I went to Spartan Stadium one time. It was a fun time. It's fun to go back to Michigan in the fall. And Jimmy and his team, they won that game. It wasn't the prettiest game, but they won that game behind defense and behind the ball control offense with Shea at quarterback, and Donovan Peoples-Jones made caught a long touchdown pass, which he ran in. And Shea made some completions late in the game. And so that was my one trip to Spartan Stadium. Again, I want to go down to the Horseshoe at some point to see that as well. Now, before I jump into an analysis of tomorrow's game, let's take one more trip down memory lane because I have a lot of Michigan State memory. So I'm going to enact the screen share one more time here, probably 2 more times. And I'm going to share, I have some pictures here. Okay. So Michigan State. So I think I started in Ann Arbor in 1999, and that was Tom Brady's senior year, Tom Brady's senior season. And I remember sitting in my West Hoover Street apartment when Lloyd Carr took his Tom Brady senior team up to East Lansing. Up to that point, that team was undefeated. And if you recall, Lloyd was splitting the quarterback duties between Tom Brady and Drew Henson. And that game, that was my first Michigan State game that I watched, and that game was literally a clash of the Titans. You could see it. You had two veteran squads, two veteran quarterbacks, and it was a close matchup. So what Lloyd did, he did the platoon system, and he played Tom for the first quarter, and then he played Drew Henson for the second quarter, and then he decided to go with whichever quarterback was the hottest going into that second half. So the game was pretty tight in the beginning. Drew Henson threw a touchdown pass in the second quarter, and then it came down to the end. You had two veteran squads. So you had Tom at quarterback for the Wolverines. You had Bill Burke at quarterback for the Spartans. Anthony Thomas at running back. TJ for the Wolverines. TJ Duckett at running back for the Spartans. David Terrell, Marcus Knight, Diallo Johnson at wide receiver for the Wolverines. And then over on the Spartan side, you had Plaxico Burress, Mr. Super Bowl winning catch, shooting himself in the leg, Plaxico Burress for the Spartans. And he gashed us that day, as did TJ Duckett. But it came down to our Wolverines just ran out of time that day. And the Spartans escaped, in large part due to a lot of us believe Lloyd splitting the quarterback duties between Tom Brady and Drew Henson. And when we look back at that game, arguably the Wolverine team was good enough to beat either Florida State or Michael Vick's Virginia Tech team that season. I think we had enough. But we had this loss to Michigan State, and then we had a home loss to Illinois, that I believe that Kurt Kittner led Illinois team a few weeks later. But that team was good enough to play in the BCS championship game. The next season, Drew Henson stepped up into the starting lineup. Nick Saban left Michigan State and I believe went down to LSU. By the way, my first year at Michigan, there was a Northwest Airlines, which was absorbed by Delta Airlines. There was a commercial where Lloyd Carr and Nick Saban were catching a flight at the same time, and they had some funny dialogue between those two. But the next year, we beat Michigan State handily. Drew Henson was the quarterback. Bobby Williams took over as their head coach, and we beat them handily. The next season, Taylor Walston, I'm going to get to that in a little bit. The next season was Drew Henson left and John Navarre stepped in, and we lost on the controversial clock freeze TJ Duckett play. The Jeff Smoker heave to TJ Duckett. We lost that game. The next year, we beat them again handily, I believe. And that's when Bobby Williams got fired and John L. Smith came in. Lloyd owned John L. Smith. And then when John L. Smith got fired and Lloyd ran out of town by Jim Tressel, Mark D'Antonio got hired. Lloyd won that first game against Mark D'Antonio. And then Mark D'Antonio pretty much owned Rich Rod and for the most part owned Brady Hoke. Rich Rod's second year when he brought in Tate Forcier and Denard Robinson, I remember going to watch that game at Buffalo's Billiards here in DuPont Circle, and we were in position to win that game. Zach, is that Buckeye Zach? Yeah, it's Buckeye Zach. Rich Rod's second team with Tate Forcier as a starting quarterback was in position to win that game up at Spartan Stadium. I think Brian Hoyer was starting for the Spartans and Kirk Cousins was backing them up. I think we were either in position to win that game or tie that game, but Tate Forcier, it was a rainy, muddy day, and Tate Forcier threw an interception on the last play. And I remember when he threw that interception in the end zone, one of the other Michigan fans at the bar slammed his hand down on the bar And I jumped like this, and then everybody just quickly filed out. And then I think the next time Michigan beat Michigan State was the field goal game. I went to that game in Ann Arbor where Denard Robinson quarterbacked our team. That was an ugly game. What's his name? Le'Veon Bell was running the ball for Michigan State. And then after that, for us, it was a bloodbath because for the rest of that time, until Jim Harbaugh took over, Denard Robinson was not Denard Robinson, Devin Gardner. That kid was running for his life the entire time. So that got pretty ugly, and they pretty much dominated the series against us until Jim got hired. Jim's first game in 2015 was exciting for us. It was very, very competitive. It was good to see our team stand up against the Spartans and punch them back in the mouth. Joe Bolden got ejected for a targeting call on Connor Cook. I didn't think he targeted Connor Cook, but the refs called that on us. And then, of course, we all remember the final play of the game, the Blake O'Neal bobbled punt, which led to Michigan State winning that game. The next season, we won that game. That was the Wilton Speight 2016 team. We beat them handily up at Spartan Stadium. The next year, the Spartans won 14-10 down at our house. That was when that monsoon came through. John O'Corn was quarterbacking for us. Brian Lewerke and the Spartan offense came out and put up 14 quick points, and then that was it for them. And what was frustrating about that game was that we only needed one more touchdown to beat Michigan State that year, and John O'Corn couldn't get us that touchdown. Very, very frustrating game. 2018, that was the game I went to up at Spartan Stadium. That was the Revenge Tour team. And then 2019, last year, we beat them. So the Paul Bunyan Trophy has been with us the last 2 seasons. And I actually changed the thumbnail this morning to commemorate that. So I'm going to go into tomorrow's game. I see some people are coming in. I'm going to stop the screen share and go back to, and we're going to talk about tomorrow's game. Okay, so we got 7 in. I'm going to read some of the comments here. Taylor Walston said, do you think Big Blue will cover the spread this weekend? Zachary James, I'm going to call you Buckeye Zach. No, Zach, I'll just call you Zach. Zach said, poor Sparty, LOL. No, not poor Sparty. They've got some fortunate wins against us over the years, but no team can win 100% of the time. Zach says, I've been telling Sparty and Nittany Lions fans, we've all had those games that you lose to teams you shouldn't lose to. Look at OSU's drops to Purdue and Iowa in recent years. We've all been there. Hey, Zach, thank you for coming through. Really, really appreciate it. Let's keep our fingers crossed that the COVID thing doesn't take down either of our 2 programs or any other program in the Big Ten, for that matter. Let's see. So we know that we beat Minnesota convincingly last week, 49-24 up in Minnesota, and that looked really good. We jumped in the polls, and I think that everyone, even Steve Dace, was pretty charged up over that win. My position about that win was everyone be cautiously optimistic. We have a young team, and it's very easy for a young team to get overzealous, and it's very easy for a young team to get a little too confident in themselves. So hopefully the Wolverines are going to take that as a nice starting spot, and they'll just keep building off of it. But hopefully they don't get so cocky that they underestimate Michigan State tomorrow. So what happened to Michigan State last week? I'm going to share the screen again, and we're going to go over to Chrome because I have a couple of tabs open. Michigan State didn't have a good opening week. They lost to Rutgers 38-27, which is surprising. Well, it's not surprising. Again, Michigan State has a new head coach, and the argument could be made that it's a rebuilding year for them. So Rutgers pulled that out up at Spartan Stadium, 38-27. So if you look at the quarters here, it's a very interesting. The scoring totals for each quarter is very interesting. Rutgers won the first quarter 14-7, and then they won the second quarter 14-6. And then Michigan State won the third quarter 7-0. And then Rutgers won the fourth quarter 10-7. So Rutgers beat them for most of the game. I'm not going to go over let's go over that. Let's go over these are the Michigan State stats. So Michigan State's quarterback, Rocky Lombardi, was 31 for 43. That's a decent completion percentage, actually, or completion ratio. He threw for 319 yards. He threw for 3 touchdowns. That's not bad, but he threw 2 interceptions. And that's probably what hurt Sparty in that game last week. Their leading receiver was Jordan Simmons. He had 43 yards, no touchdowns. Their leading rusher was Jordan Simmons. He carried the ball for 14 times for 43 yards. Their leading receiver was Jaden Reed with 11 receptions for 128 yards and 2 TDs. Jalen Naylor had 6 receptions for 84 yards and 1 touchdown. And those were all of Rocky Lombardi's touchdowns. Let's see. Defense doesn't look like they received any sacks or they got any sacks. And I'm going to take a look at their defensive stats in a second. In terms of fumbles, let's see. I'm going to skip to Michigan, these rankings here, which show that Michigan State gave up a total of 276 yards, total yards last week. They gave up 170 passing yards, and they gave up 106 rushing yards. So their defense, after that first week, and I don't know if they're going to make any adjustments, and I don't know if Rutgers was just that potent on offense, but that's an offense, that's a defense that we can score on, it looks like. I'm going to go quickly over the Rutgers stats. I see some more comments coming in to see what Rutgers did against them. So Noah Vedral went 18 for 29 last week for 169 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 TD. Rutgers' leading rusher was Isaiah Pacheco with 19 carries for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then in terms of receiving, Bo Melton and Aaron Krushank, I think I pronounced that correctly. They had they didn't have an impressive performance from their wide receiving core. It was pretty balanced, but this kid got 50 yards receiving. Aaron Krushank got 43, and Isaiah Pacheco got 37, and Shamin Jones got 32. So this was all on the Michigan State defense, and I'm going to go over this one more time. They gave up a total of 276 yards, 170 yards total passing yardage they gave up, and then 129 rushing yards. And they gave up 38 points. So this looks like a team that we can score on with our offense. I think we've got a let's look at the offensive rankings real quick. Okay, so right now, in terms of offense, wow, Northwestern is leading in terms of yards. They got 537 total yards. Surprisingly, Ohio State is second. Penn State is third. And we put up 481 total yards on Minnesota last week. So Michigan State gave up 176 against Rutgers, and we generated 481 against Minnesota. So I like to think that we will put up more than 176 total yards against Michigan State. Let's take a look at what our defense did. Let's look at Michigan State's offense. They put up 369 total yards last week against Rutgers, 319 passing, and only 50 rushing. Okay, now let's take a look at our defense from last week. Our defense gave up 326 total yards. We gave up 197 yards through the air, and we gave up 129 yards on the ground. And Minnesota only scored 24 points. So looking at those two matchups, I think those bode well for us. I'm going to take a look now. I see a bunch of comments coming in. I looked at the line from last night's game. Not from last night's game. I looked at the line last night on CBS Sports. So I'm going to skip down here. And according to CBS, Michigan State is plus 25. I'm not an expert on what do you call it? I know that the minus 25 for us means that we're favored to win by 25. I can't think of what that's called in Vegas. But we're picked to win, to beat them heavily. So this particular author picks Michigan State, to lose by 17. The overall spread is 25. So what's my pick for tomorrow's game? I'm going to pick us to beat Michigan State tomorrow 28-14. I'm conservative. That's 14 points. We have a young team, and I think that we had a great win against Minnesota last week. But the danger with a young team is that they can become so overconfident that in some instances they may underestimate their next opponent. So that will be my concern for tomorrow's game. I'm going to read some comments here. I see Taylor Walston said Rutgers is going to beat Indiana. Taylor Walston also says Indiana didn't win that game last week. Penn State gave it away. James Lepick, who is a Harbaugh backer, says Michigan 55, little brother 9, go blue. Zach says, I agree, Taylor. They had ample opportunities. Let's see. Taylor Walston says Penn State cost me on a 10 and 18 parlay. I will never trust them again. Yeah, Penn State didn't have an impressive showing in week one. Alexander Dilworth, LOL, this is funny. Taylor Walston says they will score 28 points in the first half. I'm assuming he's talking about Michigan. Zach Uhl says that score is a minimum. Okay, I don't know which score Zachra Uhl is referring to. And Zach Uhl says 68-7 Michigan. Wow. Now, if we're able to put up in the ballpark of 49 points again, I think that will say something about the kind of offense that we have this season. I think that'll be further proof that we can score some points this season. But I need to see it twice. Dexon, welcome back, Dexon. I remember you from last Sunday. Says, yeah, we will be talking about how they dropped 50 on Lil Bro tomorrow night. Okay, let's keep our fingers crossed that's true. Remember that football, and pretty much any sport for that matter, is it's a matter of staying healthy. It's a matter of matchups, and it's a matter of the players coming ready to play, and it's a matter of the coaches prepping the teams to play, and it's a matter of the coaches properly game planning for the opponents. So there are a bunch of variables there. But if they drop 50 on Cal U, then that will be very, very impressive. Zach Raul says, I was talking about your predicted score of 28-14 would be the minimum. Yeah, you know what? I kind of like to undersell things. That's just my personal style. I just like to undersell. So, and be conservative. Oh, by the way, I just thought about what I was thinking about in terms of picking the scores. It's handicapping. I'm not an expert on the handicapping. Alexander Dilworth. Wrong. Playing a depleted Gopher team and a rebuilding Michigan State team doesn't say much. Well, Alexander, what you want is that you want to at least beat the teams you're supposed to beat. You don't want I believe in Brady Hoax last season, we were struggling and we were going down to the last couple of seconds against teams like Western Michigan. So you want to at least beat the teams handily that you're supposed to beat. Lopsided wins, I agree. That doesn't tell you anything about how your team would do in a street fight against a stronger opponent. So that doesn't tell you anything about how your team would do against Ohio State. It doesn't tell you anything about how your team would do against a fully stacked and healthy Wisconsin team, for example. So I agree with that. But you at least want to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat the way you're supposed to beat them. You don't want to be squeaking by against Army like we did early last season. Dexon says, if Rutgers dropped dang near 40 on MSU, no way we don't drop 50, rivalry or not. If you stank, you stank, LOL. Okay. So Dexon, there are two ways to look at that. Let me see. Michigan State scored 27. So Michigan State did show that they could move the ball, and they did show that they could put up some points themselves. They didn't put up 49. They didn't put up the point total that we did against. They didn't put up the point total we did. They didn't put up the point total that Ohio State did. But that could also be interpreted as that first game under a new coaching regime and having a few screws loose and having a few things that need to be tightened up. So we can potentially see a much different Michigan State team than we saw. We can see a much different Michigan State team tomorrow than Rutgers saw last week, which is the danger for a young team like ours. Looks like Alexander Dilworth agrees. He says exactly. Nail on the head. And then Zach Raoul says, let's not act like Ohio State doesn't have a see, here we go. You're gonna set it off. As we used to say in my high school lunchroom, we used to rib on each other, and one guy would start it and the other guy would say, you're gonna set it off, you know. So Zachra, looks like you're gonna set it off and get Buckeye fan in here lashing out with a vengeance. So let's see, Alexander Dilworth. OSU has proven the team up north is not. Okay, so I think Alexander, you're a Buckeye fan. Guys, I'm gonna see, we're at 12:49 right now. We're at 46 minutes. I'm going to drop the link in the chat if someone else wants to come up and give their 2 cents. In the time we have left, you are more than willing to do so. I won't stretch today's pregame live stream out too long. I have an assignment at my dreaded 9 to 5 that I have to finish up by COB today. So if anyone wants to come up, just click the link. Keep it respectful. Keep it civil. Like we did last week. We had a Buckeye fan. We had Zach come up last week. And even though he didn't insist, we are light years ahead of you guys. Zach was respectful, and Zach did play nice. So that's my only ask if you guys come up into the stream. Let's see. Dexon says, I agree on that. MSU will definitely come out swinging. I still think Michigan will be just way too much. I have Michigan winning a close one. A close one, 55-10. Guys, and the other thing is matchups. You never really know how teams are going to match up. And some teams are, guys, I left my Cash App there in the chat. You don't have to give anything. If you want to donate something, you can, $1, whatever. You don't have to. But you never know how teams are going to match up, and you never know how teams are going to get up for an opponent on a given day. And you never know, I don't want to be I had an ex-girlfriend one time call me a catastrophist because I liked to save money for a rainy day. But you never know when that unfortunate injury is going to happen, which is going to tip the scales in the favor of the other team. So, you just never know. I think in the Michigan State game in Jim's first year, I think in that game we lost Ryan Glasgow. He broke his forearm. And I think, I don't remember when Ryan Glasgow went out in that game, but he was our defensive tackle. And I know that certainly impacted our season against Minnesota and against Indiana, because both of those teams gashed us on the ground. But we did lose Ryan Glasgow in that Michigan State game. So there are teams when there are years when we've won this game in a lopsided way. There have been years when it's been really, really close. There have been years when they've won the game in a lopsided way. I'm thinking about some of those Brady Hoke years where Devin Gardner was running for his life. And then there have been some years when the game was won on a controversial call, like going back to the Desmond Howard game where Desmond Howard was allegedly tripped in the end zone, and there was no pass interference call. There was the TJ Duckett frozen clock game, and then there was the Blake O'Neal bobbled punt game. So my position is conservative. Looking at the stats from last week's game, it's likely that we're going to win, but you just never know. Zach Raul says, why is it that when Michigan actually proved most people wrong when beating Minnesota, nobody gave him the credit he actually deserved? Him, are you referring to the team, or are you referring to Jimmy? Are you referring to Josh Gaddis? Or are you referring to Joe Milton? Who are you referring to with him, Zachary? And my answer to that would be, again, it was one game. It was a good first start, but you want to see it repeatedly week after week after week after week. It'll be interesting to see with a week of game film. I don't know who Mel Tucker's offensive coordinator is, but going back to our game against Minnesota, Tanner Morgan did make some throws against Don's defense. And quarterbacks, we know that quarterbacks who can get the ball out quickly and quarterbacks who can hit those slant routes, unless Don makes adjustments, those quarterbacks can have success against our defense. And there were throws that Tanner Morgan missed. And last week I said those are throws that someone like Justin Fields will make. So it'll be interesting to see if they've studied the game film on our defense to see if to see where the weaknesses in our defense is. If they don't have that ability, their quarterback is going to get thrashed by Kwity Paye and Aiden Hutchinson and Cam McGrone. So let's see. I have another comment here. Zachary said the whole team. And Alexander Dilworth said the team up north was ranked higher. That makes no sense. You were supposed to beat them. I love Buckeye Fan. Buckeye Fan comes in with a vengeance, and Buckeye Fan gives some very, very hot takes against us. So that's what makes this fun. G2EZ says go blue. And he also says that Milton looks really good. So that's going to be what we're looking for, guys. Or that's going to be what I'm looking for. Can Joe do it again? Because every defense he faces, it's like a prize fight. It's like when Mike Tyson was champion. Every contender, every foe is going to present a different challenge. Some are going to be bigger, some are going to be stronger, some are going to be faster. And so how does Joe and the offense, when they see different types of opponents, how are they going to do against different opponents? And how will the opposing defensive coordinator scheme against Joe? And how does Josh Gaddis and his offense adjust to the different looks they're going to get? Because they're going to get different looks eventually. There's going to be enough game film against multiple opponents. And they're going to say, okay, we notice he likes to do this. We notice he likes to do that. We're going to cut these things off to see if he can beat us doing this thing over here. So we've had some what's that? Let's see, it's 54 minutes. So we've had you've had more conservative predictions like mine, and you've had some very liberal predictions like some of the other guys who think that we're going to put up 40 or more points. So that's going to be interesting to see. We have another comment here from our Buckeye fan, Alexander Dilworth. We are not talking OSU. This is a Michigan podcast. So let's talk Michigan. Yeah, but you're a Buckeye fan, so by nature of you being here, your team has to come up in the discussion. Do you think that if we win all our games, we automatically make the playoffs? Okay. So you're going to force Alexander to say something else. So winning all our games, that means beating Alexander's team, Ohio State. And if you could knock them off, that win in itself is a strong argument for making the playoff. I mean, now, of course, you want to go ahead to Indianapolis and win the title game. But if you can knock off Ohio State, yes, that absolutely. I knew it. That if you can knock off Ohio State, that should put you in the conversation. But ultimately, you need to win your conference championship as well. Though they have rewarded some teams in the past, such as Alexander's team, that JT Barrett first down 2016 team, they made it into the college football playoff, and they didn't win the conference. So occasionally, the college football playoff committee will reward a team that has not won its conference. And I think they let Nick Saban's Alabama team in a couple of times without winning their conference. So Alexander, G2 Easy answered no. And then Alexander says, I have not brought up Ohio State. I will not bring Ohio State up. So I'll drop the link in one more time. But if not, I'll close down shortly because I have an assignment to finish up for my dreaded 9 to 5. As Captain Capitalism Aaron Clary says, your 9 to 5 is not meant to be fun. And it's meant to be painful. But for my post-game live stream, I will probably do Sunday morning again. I like to think about things before I shoot them, or in this instance, before I go live. So I think I'm going to go for the Sunday morning time slot. Again, I was thinking about going at around 4:30 tomorrow, but I think I'm going to take some time to look at the stats. And if it ends up being a maize and blue loss, hopefully it doesn't, I'll probably need some time to digest whatever happens. So look for the post-game live stream to go on Sunday morning. I think that I already rescheduled it. And those are my thoughts on tomorrow's game against Cal U. So I think we're going to win that one. I've predicted a 14-point spread. CBS predicted 25 points. But the question is, next week, last week, their output against, and they're showing against Rutgers, is that the best Michigan State has to give? Is that the best Michigan State has to show? They put up 327. No. Their quarterback, I think, threw for 327 yards. So they can put the ball up in the air, but he turned it over twice. So what are they going to do against Don's defense tomorrow? So if there are no other comments, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. All I had to eat today was a protein bar and a pot of coffee, and I have to finish this assignment for my dreaded 9 to 5. I want to thank everyone who watched. I want to thank everyone who commented. You too, Alexander from Ohio State. Go blue. Again, folks, keep your fingers crossed that our team and none of our opponents go down with the virus. I mean, I don't know. They have to try to keep the kids isolated as much as possible, kind of like in the NBA bubble. I don't know. And all the kids have to buy in to keeping themselves out of environments that would get them infected, because that's impacting the whole conference. And it's a lot of players per team. So there are a lot of variables there. But keep your fingers crossed that our team and our remaining opponents don't get taken down with COVID-19. A lot of variables here, and there's a lot left, a lot of season left. We only have 7 games left, but there's a lot of room there for something to happen. I have one more comment here from G2EZ, which says, if we beat Michigan State, will we be in the top 10? Well, I think that depends on how the teams in the current top 10 perform. Certainly, if we put up another basketball score, then I think that's a rationale for putting us in that top 10. But that's all going to depend upon how we play tomorrow. And that's going to depend on how the teams already in the top 10 play tomorrow. So there's a lot that can happen. And there's a lot that can happen. In any case, thank you all for coming through and for commenting. Look for a post-game live stream on Sunday morning. Please like this stream. Please like the video if you're watching it on the playback. Please share it. And please subscribe. I think I was sitting at 393 or 394. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Help push me over the 400 subscriber mark. Go blue. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.